Greetings to you all. This session we are going to be looking into Saivism and Vaishnavism, which are called as Hindu religions. In earlier sessions we saw how selfless love was introduced into the subcontinent in 52 AD by the Apostle Thomas, who brought it first into North India, into Taxila, and then further after that brought it into South India, into Calicut, the western coast. The main message which was brought was unconditional love or selfless love, which was introduced in this planet on earth 20 years ago when Yeshua gave up his life for others and in the process inaugurated the age of love. When Thomas brought this message of unconditional love to South India, the predominant language in South India was Tamil. It's to be realized that now the west coast has the language of Malayalam, but Malayalam is just 800 years old. It is the youngest of the Indian languages. So even in the west coast of India, which was part of Cheranadu, it was Tamil that was spoken. And when people there got introduced to unconditional love, they realized that that was the most superior form of love, and they termed it as God. And the term love is God originated, or love is supreme. There is nothing greater than unconditional love. After the introduction of unconditional love among the people, the thought of selfless love was given predominance, and the term Anbe Sivam, or love is God, came into usage. That there is nothing more superior than love, that love is supreme. And Sivam and love became synonymous. Now this is the foundation of Saivite religion, which says that love is supreme. To communicate the Saivite thought to common people, a family situation was explained in which Shiva was God, was looked at the father, the mother was called as Shakti, and the son was Kumaran. It's interesting to note that even in Hebrew, the Spirit, the Holy Spirit is referred to as Ruah and is the feminine gender. So Shakti in Tamil is feminine gender, and the Kumaran, or the son of God, was given two attributes. One was Ganapati and the other was Murugan. Ganapati is also referred as Pillayar. In Tamil, the suffix R is used as reverence. So if it was to be my son, it would be called, he'll be called as Pillai. Because he's God's son, the suffix R is introduced and becomes Pillayar. So the Son of God was given two attributes, Pillayar and Murugan in Saivite tradition. Murugan to say, meaning the beautiful one. The beauty, the inner beauty was what was mentioned, was signified. So the Saivite tradition started growing, and literature was written, scriptures, and the people appreciated this to such a great extent that it became the foundation for all the great saints. The Saivite saints are called Nayanmars, and there are 63 of them, and they eulogized the whole aspect of love. So this is the foundation of Saivite religion, and in the process we come to know that in the Greek tradition, the Holy Spirit is referred to as a male gender. So a similar situation arose in the subcontinent in Tamil Nadu also, where the Shakti in Shaivite religion was, people wanted to have a male form, and so another tradition broke out from this, and they called it the Holy Spirit as Vishnu, and so the Vaishnavite tradition came out from that, in which you had Shiva once again as the God the Father, and Vishnu as the Spirit, and as the Son of God in his form you had Brahma and Ayyappan. So the Trinity in Vaishnavite became Shiva, Vishnu and Brahma. So this came after the Saivite religion, and this tradition had also its saints, and you have the 12 Alvars who wrote extensively about Vishnu, and the Vaishnavite tradition developed in South India. So we had two forms of Hindu religion, the Saivites and the Vaishnavites, both founded on the foundation of unconditional love, and which grew, had its own following and temples and saints who wrote about this and poets who sung about the glory of God in these two religions. So this is how Saivite and Vaishnavite religions came into being. It will be interesting to note that the spirituality which grew in the subcontinent started from the south. Both Saivite and Vaishnavite religions grew from South India and moved to north. The tradition of Shiva being synonymous with love, which we see in both Saivite and Vaishnavite religions, as it moved towards the north, it became more diluted, to the extent that in future days Shiva became known as the destroyer, and Vishnu as the sustainer, and Brahma as the creator. Now this has become the foundation for the popular Hindu religion that we see today, where people refer to Shiva as the destroyer, whereas actually his more predominant characteristic is love. Even as we look in other scriptures, God is referred to the God of love, though there is a dimension of his judgment and aspects of where his destruction is attributed to him. The predominance is that God is a God of love. This became diluted in Hindu religions as time went by, and we see Shiva with a trident, people thinking that it is used as it's a weapon. But in the figure of Shiva, the trident actually comes from a Judaic principle of where it's used as a meat fork to load the sacrificial meat onto the altar where it's offered. So it is the trident which Shiva holds in his hand is more a symbol of sacrifice rather than a weapon which is used to destroy. So this is how Shaivite and Vaishnavite religions grew, and as I mentioned earlier, it is pertinent to note that the whole spirituality grew from South India and went up to North India. It would be pertinent to note that the scriptures for both Shaivism and Vaishnavism were written in the Tamil language. You find that Tamil scholars were the ones who wrote the poetries that praised God in both Vaishnavism and Shaivism, and in the Tamil language. The poetry was in Tamil language. Another dimension to be noted is the form of worship in Shaivism and Vaishnavism. We see the temple worship developing. If you see the layout of a Shaivite temple, you will see an altar in the beginning where no sacrifice is offered, only the flowers are kept. Before that, you will find a shrine for Ganapati, meaning to say that only through the Son of God can you enter and worship God. After the altar, you will find a sacrificial pole, which is a huge pole which is kept vertical, signifying the pole which the Son of God carried on his shoulder when he was put to death. And then you will have the Sanctum Sanctorum or the Holy of Holies, within which there is just a linga or a symbol of love, a Shiva Lingam, which is a stone or stupa. So this whole layout is very typical of a temple which we see in Israel. So the architects had developed it looking at the temple there. And around the temple there is this whole gopuram, which architects say gopuram with a number of openings on the side. And architects say that this is once again analogy to the story of Jacob, where in his dream he sees angels go up and down. So it's a ladder. He talks about a ladder where angels went from earth to heaven. So you'd see the gopuram designed with openings going on its side, similar to a ladder, and on the edges you will see winged creatures, of course designed in Indian figurine to symbol angels. So there is a lot of similarity which from the architectural point between the temples which were designed here and what was happening, the spirituality, how it was expressed in Israel. So thank you for being part of this session.